single dad took his brother's place on a blind date, but her quiet question changed everything. He wasn't supposed to be there that night. The reservation wasn't in his name. The neatly pressed shirt clung awkwardly to his broad shoulders because it belonged to his younger brother. Even the small folded note in his pocket carried someone else's handwriting. Yet as he stood outside the softly lit restaurant, watching couples laugh through the tall glass windows, Daniel felt something tightening in his chest, like he was about to step into a life that didn't belong to him. And maybe he was. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that change ordinary lives, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that even the smallest decision can rewrite a destiny. Daniel hadn't planned on pretending to be anyone. But life had taught him that sometimes you show up where you're needed, even if it means standing in someone else's place. 3 years earlier, Daniel's world had collapsed in the sterile hallway of a hospital. His wife, Mara, had lost her battle with a sudden illness, leaving him alone with a 2-year-old daughter and a grief so heavy it felt physical. He remembered sitting in the parking lot afterward, unable to turn the key in the ignition because doing so meant driving home to a house that no longer felt like home. He learned quickly that grief doesn't wait for you to catch your breath. Bills still arrived. His daughter, Lily, still woke up in the middle of the night crying for her mother. Laundry still piled up. Life demanded motion even when his heart begged to stand still. Daniel became everything at once: father, mother, provider, comforter. He worked double shifts at a local warehouse, coming home with sore hands and tired eyes, only to kneel beside Lily's bed and read her the same storybook every night because it was the only one that calmed her. He burned dinners. He forgot school forms. He cried silently in the shower so she wouldn't hear. His younger brother, Ryan, watched all of it from a distance. Ryan was different, lighter, freer. He worked in marketing, wore crisp shirts without wrinkles, and had a talent for charming rooms full of strangers. He loved Daniel and Lily deeply, but he carried none of the weight Daniel carried. The blind date had been Ryan's idea. "She seems nice," Ryan had told him a week earlier, scrolling through his phone while sitting at Daniel's small kitchen table. A friend set it up. "Her name's Emily. She's a teacher. Smart. Kind. You should meet someone like that." Daniel had laughed, not cruelly but tiredly. He had glanced at the sink filled with dishes and then at Lily, who was drawing on scrap paper with intense concentration. "Who would want this?" he had asked quietly. Ryan hadn't answered right away. The date was set for Saturday. But Saturday morning, Ryan called, his voice apologetic and breathless. A last-minute work trip. A client emergency. He couldn't cancel without looking unreliable, and he couldn't make it back in time. He asked Daniel, half joking, if he could go in his place, at least to explain. Daniel had refused at first. The idea felt absurd. But as the day passed, something restless stirred inside him. He hadn't done anything for himself in years. He hadn't spoken to a woman in any meaningful way since Mara. He told himself he was only going to apologize on Ryan's behalf. That's how he ended up standing outside the restaurant, adjusting a shirt that wasn't his, rehearsing an explanation he wasn't sure he could deliver. Inside, he spotted her immediately. Emily sat near the window, her hands folded loosely on the table. She wasn't scrolling through her phone like most people waiting alone. She simply watched the street, as if she were patient enough to let time pass without distraction. There was something steady about her, something unhurried. Daniel approached, heart pounding harder than it had any right to. He introduced himself truthfully. He didn't pretend to be Ryan. He explained the situation, expecting irritation or embarrassment. But Emily didn't seem offended. She listened. And when he finished, there was a small smile on her face, not amused, not mocking, just understanding. He offered to leave. She asked him to stay. They ordered coffee. Daniel's hands felt too large around the delicate cup. He told himself he would keep it brief. But conversation has a strange way of opening doors you didn't know were locked. They spoke about simple things at first: work, family, favorite books. Emily's voice was soft but confident, like someone used to guiding small children through big emotions. She taught 3rd grade at a public school and spoke about her students with a tenderness that caught Daniel off guard. It had been a long time since he'd heard someone speak about anything with pure joy. He avoided talking about his personal life. He wasn't ready to peel back that layer. But Emily noticed the hesitation in him. Not suspiciously, just observantly. The evening moved gently, like a slow current. Daniel found himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in years. He almost forgot why he had come. And then, when there was a quiet pause between them, she asked it. Not loudly, not accusingly, just softly. She asked if there was someone at home waiting for him. The question was simple, but it landed like a stone dropped into still water. Daniel's throat tightened. He could have deflected. He could have shrugged it off. Instead, he nodded. He told her about Lily. He didn't tell the story dramatically. He didn't describe the hospital corridors or the unbearable silence of that first night alone. He just said he was a single father and that his daughter was his entire world. Emily didn't interrupt. She didn't offer pity. She simply listened. And then she asked another question, even quieter than the first. She asked if he was lonely. Daniel hadn't expected that. Loneliness wasn't something he allowed himself to examine. He was too busy surviving to name his feelings. But the way she asked, without judgment, without expectation, made something inside him crack. He realized he was lonely. Not just for adult conversation or companionship, but for someone to see him. To see the exhaustion behind his steady routine. To understand that strength can coexist with sorrow. He admitted it. The restaurant around them faded into background noise. For a moment, it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of them and the fragile honesty resting between them. Emily told him she had lost her father when she was young. She remembered watching her mother try to be everything at once. She said she had always admired single parents, not because they were perfect, but because they kept going even when it hurt. Daniel felt something shift inside his chest. Not romance, not yet. Something deeper. Recognition. The night ended not with fireworks but with a quiet promise. They exchanged numbers, not because they were swept away, but because neither of them wanted the conversation to end forever. Driving home, Daniel expected guilt. He had taken his brother's place. He had stepped into a scenario that wasn't meant for him. But what he felt instead was something unfamiliar. Hope. The weeks that followed were careful and slow. Emily didn't rush him. She knew about Lily from the beginning and insisted that Daniel's daughter came first. Their meetings were simple: coffee in the afternoon, walks in the park while Lily played nearby. Emily never tried to replace anything. She just showed up. Lily, who had grown quiet since her mother's passing, surprised Daniel one afternoon by handing Emily a small dandelion and smiling shyly. It wasn't dramatic, but it was the first time Daniel had seen that particular smile directed at someone new. Still, doubt lingered. Daniel questioned whether he was allowed to move forward. He worried that loving again would somehow dishonor Mara's memory. Some nights, he sat at the edge of his bed, staring at an old photograph, asking forgiveness from someone who was no longer there to give it. One evening, as he walked Emily to her car after dinner, he confessed that fear. He admitted that part of him felt like he was betraying the past. Emily didn't respond with grand speeches. She simply said that love doesn't replace, it expands. That the heart isn't a room with limited space, but a sky that grows wider when we let it. It was another quiet question, unspoken but understood: was he willing to let his sky widen? Months passed. The relationship deepened not through dramatic gestures but through consistency. Emily helped Lily with homework. She sat in the audience at a small school recital. She brought soup when Daniel caught the flu and refused to let him apologize for the mess in his house. Daniel began to understand that second chances rarely arrive in thunderclaps. Sometimes they come in soft voices and patient hands. Ryan eventually met Emily properly. Instead of resentment, he felt gratitude. He admitted that maybe the date had never been meant for him in the first place. The real turning point came one rainy afternoon when Lily fell off her bike and scraped her knee badly. She cried, not from the pain but from fear. Emily knelt beside her, steady and calm, and held her close while Daniel cleaned the wound. Later that night, Lily asked if Emily could read her bedtime story. Daniel stood in the hallway, listening to Emily's gentle voice float through the door. In that moment, he felt something he hadn't felt since before Mara passed. Peace. Before we reach the end of this story, if it has touched your heart even a little, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in healing, and subscribe to the channel. And right now, comment the word, hope, if you believe second chances are real. Years later, Daniel would look back at that night outside the restaurant as the moment everything changed. Not because it was perfect. Not because it was planned. But because he chose to show up, even when he felt unworthy. Emily's quiet question, whether he was lonely, had forced him to confront a truth he had buried beneath responsibility. It opened a door he didn't know he was allowed to walk through. On a mild spring evening, under a sky painted in soft pink and gold, Daniel asked Emily another quiet question of his own. It wasn't elaborate. It wasn't rehearsed. It was simple and sincere. He asked if she would build a life with him and Lily. Her answer was just as quiet. And just as powerful. The wedding was small. Intimate. Lily walked between them, holding both their hands, her laughter ringing through the air like a promise fulfilled. There were no grand speeches about fate or destiny. Only gratitude, for timing, for courage, for the strange twist of events that had placed Daniel in a seat that wasn't meant for him. Sometimes life reroutes us without warning. Sometimes we stand outside doors we think belong to someone else. But when we dare to step inside, we might find the very thing we've been missing. Daniel never forgot that night. He kept the folded reservation note in a drawer, a reminder that the most important moments often begin with uncertainty. And, every so often, when Emily would catch him watching her with quiet wonder, she would smile knowingly, because she understood that one gentle question had changed everything. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that kindness and courage can rewrite even the darkest chapters, please engage with this video. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. Because sometimes, the bravest thing we can do, is simply show up.